I just want to help people quiet the noise so they can actually feel where God is pulling them.
That's really good.
I don't want to leave Mandy. I mean, it still makes me emotional to think about it because I was 29 or whatever, however old I was.
Yeah.
So overwhelmed with all this stuff in my brain that I couldn't see clearly.
Many men, when they fall apart, they don't do it loudly. When they fall apart, it's often done in quiet. They stay busy, productive, they keep performing, and all the while, they're restless, numb, and they're hiding, drifting further from God. Our guest today, Lucas LeFevre, founder of Holy Work, has lived that story, and what turned his life wasn't more discipline or more success. It was radical honesty, real surrender, and learning how to stop long enough to hear what God was doing. So watch this all the way through because this conversation gets to the heart of why so many men feel stuck, even when life looks fine on the outside. And if you want more conversations like this, subscribe, ring the bell if you're on YouTube, and that way you can stick with us. Lucas, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Cool. It's going to be really fun.
Yes, I'm excited for this.
When I found out you were on, I thought back to our time together at a different season of life.
Yeah.
And we went to Chick-fil-A and we grubbed.
Yeah.
And you were extremely helpful in a transitional time in my life. So I'm excited for
Glad to hear that.
us to do that. I'm sorry there's not Christian chicken involved today.
Yeah,
Kind of
there's
stinks.
still time. We could order.
We could make
I
this
don't
happen.
remember exactly what we talked about,
I don't
but
either.
I do remember leaving and going like, I hope that was helpful.
It was.
I don't know if it was.
No, it was. I was in one of those spirals that I tend to go in my life. And you were like, hey, man, it's all good. We're eating Chick-fil-A. I don't know. I don't even know what happened either, but it was good. It was helpful.
Good.
I
Glad
needed
to
it.
hear.
Yes.
Cool.
Well, so Lucas, I'm getting used to not calling you Luke because, we discussed this before the show, but there's a whole reason behind it and everything.
Yeah, and we don't need to be coy about it. There's another Luke LeFevre out there who's a great guy.
Yes.
Who lives here like 10 miles from us. And so he and I got on the phone and we're just like, all right. I was like, what's your real name? And he was like, it's Luke. And I'm like, my real name's Lucas. All right.
I got to give in.
I'll go with
I'll
Lucas.
give in.
Yeah.
I get Instagram message or text. So do I have to call you Lucas now? And I'm like,
It's so confusing.
sure. I don't really care, but
Yeah.
We'll go with Lucas.
Glad to be here.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, we're stoked to have you.
Yeah.
So for everybody who's watching, if they're unfamiliar with you, I know a bit of your story, but I want to hear it again and I want them to hear it.
Okay.
Just like what is Holy Work? How'd you get there? What was the story leading up to that big change right there?
Holy Work is it sounds funny to call it a brand or a business or ministry, but it's all of those things. But it started in 2010. Mandy, my wife, and I had been married about 9 years. And those first years of our marriage, from 2001 to 2010, I would say that I was just a very discontent. That is the best way to put it. Discontent. I wasn't seeking God, addicted to pornography, bad thought habits. Mm-hmm. And especially 2001 to 2006, I was just like, is this it? Is this life? Our first year of marriage, she loved her job. She was a teacher and she'd go to work and she'd come home exhausted in all the good ways. Mm-hmm. And I was like feeling like a cog in a machine going from our suburb to this other suburb to work in a strip mall agency where I was a designer. Mm-hmm. And maybe I should be grateful for that and not complain about it and all those things. But I hated it. And I'd get home and we'd have a casserole and watch TV and stuff. And I was just like super discontent throughout that period. And nobody really knew that except her and me and maybe my parents and some relatives. But, I was just kind of in a blah place. And 2006, we had our first daughter, and I was honestly ready to give up on faith in any form because I wasn't happy. I couldn't. She didn't know about this porn addiction I had, and I don't want to sort of soften that. It wasn't like every day, but it's something I couldn't stop if I wanted to. And but she didn't know about that. In 2006, we had our first daughter, and I was like, is Jesus, God real? I grew up in the church, so maybe I just think it because of that. And so we're going to this church and this pastor comes and he does this talk and I'm kind of in that headspace. And at the end of his talk, he goes, I dare you to ask God to rock your world. And it was just sort of, I did that noise that you made there. And I thought, well, that I could do. And if he's real, maybe it'll happen. And if not, maybe it's time to move on. And I left the sanctuary thing we were in, and they had a bookstore out there. So I went and bought a brand new Bible. And I joke, I bought a brand new Bible because this one was going to work. And I wrote a note in the front of it, just sort of as a reset. It's December, I think it was 12th, 2006. Some version of I dare you to rock my world. I look forward to seeing what happens. Yeah. So it's not like I drove home and like the clouds parted or anything like that. But what happened over the next couple of, probably a year and a half, were two different things. One had to do with my job, and we could get into it here if we need to. It was a good thing. But the second thing was I just felt these little nudges to figure out your money. Like Mandy and I fought about money. We had a bunch of debt. Like it was a thing we wrestled with. And so I just had these little nudges. Well, I should figure that out. And so I started Googling, and I found Jim Cramer, who's like, sell, buy. He's that guy. And then I came across Dave Ramsey, and I started listening to Dave's podcast, and I got hooked right away. And I'm like, we got to do this, you know? And so I started following Dave. And eventually, long story short, I ended up getting a job down here in Tennessee, working for Dave, leading design for Financial Peace University.
Awesome.
So we get down here. That's literally the very last day of 2008. So it was really like 2009.
Wow.
So we start working there. I'm there for about a year. I've still got some addictions. I thought to myself, we'll move across the country. I'll go work for Dave. I'll quit the band I was in. Like, this is going to fix everything. We get down here about 6 months into a year. I start having that discontent feeling again. And I'm like, what is the problem? We moved across the country. I got a great job. Like, we live in, I think, sorry, the people that don't live here, Middle Tennessee is the best. And I'm like,
beautiful.
What is the problem? And what my thought patterns had started to do. And again, I know I said, I dare you to rock my world. I know I came down to work for Dave Ramsey. I wasn't seeking God in my life. I was occasionally praying for guidance. What should I do? Should we move to Tennessee or not? Which, you know, but not like every day, building a relationship. And I start to feel that discontentment about a year in. And you would think I would start to look at like, what do I got to do here, you know, in my heart. And I started to blame Mandy. She must be the problem. We've been together too long. Like, we got married too young, like all this stuff. And I still have to, as a man, if you're married, you still have to work through that stuff all the time. But at that point, I didn't have any sort of thought control or even knowledge about how that would work. I really was just like letting my feelings lead what my actions were. And that just sort of started to ruminate in my brain. She's the problem. We just got married too young. I married the wrong girl. Like, I just didn't know. And because she was my high school sweetheart. So we were together forever and all that stuff.
Wow.
And that just started going.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you know, anything she did that I didn't like was
a case.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
Stupid stuff now that I think about it. Well, she doesn't even like movies.
Right.
I like movies. We don't have anything in common. You know, it's just like this kind of stuff that just gets like blown up in your brain. And I just kind of started letting that play out. And we had 2 kids at the time. They were young. And I was out for a run in April of 2010. I only know that because it was the Nashville marathon was coming and I was going to try to do it. So I knew I was training for that. And so I'm out for a run. And I'm starting to, these thoughts are just like going. And as I'm running, I start to think, I gotta get divorced. Like, I gotta move on. Like, I can't live like this anymore. And as I'm having those thoughts, I'm playing out like, what will happen? Will Mandy move back to Illinois? What will I do for work? Like, all this stuff. And I'm really playing it out. I'm starting to cry about it. Because even if I was thinking I wanted that, it still sucks. And I'm like so over this thing that I've got. And as I'm getting super overwhelmed with that, I'm running up this hill. It's just right over here. I think it's a road called Commonwealth. Running up this hill, overwhelmed with these thoughts of like, I think it's time to get a divorce. What's going to happen? I felt something that I describe as a giant thumb I don't know how else to describe it. I felt what felt like a giant thumb on my whole body. And it was just like out of nowhere, the thought, be still and know that I'm God. Almost like a command. And it just came out of nowhere. And it was so different than the thoughts I was having. And again, I wasn't reading the Bible every day. I wasn't I wasn't seeking God, asking, other than complaining, why do I feel this way? Why? So that just sort of like pulled me out of that loop right there. And I was like, what was that? And it wasn't audible. It was just like I can't explain it. Well, I finished my run and I got home, and the question knocking around in my head was just like, God, was that you? Like, is that what people talk about when they say they hear from God? And I guess I was like deconstructing this process. All right, if I heard that and that was real and that wasn't my thought, and all these things, maybe some of the things I've heard throughout the past is true. And one of the things I remembered hearing from church Bible stuff was the truth will set you free. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just write Mandy a letter and I'll tell her everything. So she was gone that night. And so I just sat down at this little desk we had and I started writing. And I just told her everything. I was like, here's my doubts. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's the addictions. We got married too young. Stuff I'm not going to say on a podcast. I told her everything. And as I wrote those down, I don't know when this happened, whether it was writing it down or on the run or whatever, but I started to see, once I put them down on a piece of paper, whoa, these are gross thoughts. Like, what if they're not true? Like, what if they're just thoughts? So I don't really know when that happened. If it was when I was writing it or whatever it was, but at the end of the letter I wrote, but I think all these thoughts I'm having are distorted. And maybe it was from years of looking at porn. Maybe it was from never having any sort of thought control in my brain. But I think what I'm thinking is distorted, and I'm in to fight for this marriage if you are. And thankfully, she got home. I said, can we talk? I read her the letter, and obviously she wasn't happy about any of that. But at the end, I said, but I'm in to fight for this if you are. Thankfully, she said, I'm in.
Wow.
And we started going to see counselor. We started to talk through everything. We started to do a bunch of things we had never done before, be honest with each other. And over the course of the next couple of months, timelines are wacky from 16 years ago. But I thought, man, I told her the truth and it started to heal our marriage. I wonder if I just started getting up early every day and writing out my actual thoughts and feelings like I did in that letter to God.
Yeah.
And just started getting them out.
Yeah. Wow.
I just started doing that. And so that was 2010. I'd get up 3 or 4 times a week, and it wasn't anything profound. I didn't have a framework. I just got up, I'd read a chapter of the Bible, and I'd be like, I'd write what I was actually thinking.
Right.
So
yes,
if there was part of the Bible in Matthew that I thought didn't make any sense, or this is insane, like this, what is this?
Yeah.
I would write that. I wouldn't write what I was supposed to write.
That's good.
I wrote what I was actually thinking, and I did that for, a week, 2 weeks, 6 months, a year, 2 years. 5 years later, it's 2015.
Wow.
Nobody knows that story.
Yeah.
It's just Mandy and I.
Wow.
And I look up 5 years later, we had paid off all our debt. Our marriage was in the best place it had ever been. I'd been put in some leadership positions at Ramsey. And I was just like,
what in the world?
Ultimately, it's seek ye first the kingdom of God. I started giving him the firsts. I didn't really even know that's what I was doing. I was just getting up early and writing it out and saying, God, bleh,
here's my heart.
Here's my heart.
Yeah.
And I look up and I'm like, my life is way different. And the minute I read that letter to her, I haven't looked at pornography since.
Wow.
And so
that's crazy.
It was like once the shame was shined a light on. And I say that, and I like saying that on podcasts like this because it also holds me even more accountable.
Totally.
But when you shine a light on things, it releases it.
Yeah.
It's not hiding and growing. And so I just kept writing. In 2015, people I was in this leadership role and people would come to me with problems. It was never about work. It was always about something else or whatever. And I would just be like, here's what you got to do tomorrow. Get up early, get out a pen and a journal, vomit out exactly what you're thinking about this. Like, don't hold back. Don't filter yourself. Curse words if you need it, whatever.
Let it out.
And they come back the next day and they'd be like, I did that thing. And I feel so much better. And I'm like, I know. And so I just started having those kind of conversations, and then kept talking about it, kept working at Ramsey, loved working there, making stuff for them, but then sort of kind of became known as the journaling guy there. And
I love that.
Long story short, I ended up leaving there in August of 22 to like help people work through this thing. There's so much noise that was in my head back in 22 or 2010 that I could not see clearly, and my thoughts were distorted, and I was ruminating on all these wacky things.
Yeah.
And once I started to get them out, the noise quieted down.
Yeah.
And I would do that every day so that by the time the busyness or the projects or the whatever of the day came, I had sort of worked out what I thought before anything else happened. And so I started teaching people this framework, and then putting some models behind it, and I've started turning it into a thing where I help people do this now every day. And we meet every morning on Zoom. People all across the world show up at 7 a.m. Central, which there's a guy from Ireland in it now. So this is his lunch break.
Wow.
But yeah, we just show up. I guide them through a guided thing to give them a space to show up. And I just want to help people quiet the noise so they can actually feel where God is pulling them.
That's really good.
I don't want to leave Mandy.
Yeah.
Like it still makes me emotional to think about it, because the 80-year-old version of Luke would be really upset if he would have left. But I was 29 or whatever, however old I was, so overwhelmed with all this stuff in my brain that I couldn't see clearly. And so if I can help people just slow down, see clearly, and then take their action steps, we'll be good. But I'll stop there.
No, you're good. Thank you for sharing all that, dude. It's helpful to have, even for me to hear the story behind the work. You know, you hear somebody's doing something cool and you're like, but what's the how did you get here? So thank you for sharing that.
For sure.
Hey, you guys might have noticed the hats we've been wearing in some of the episodes here. These are from our friends over at Tennessee Hats. Everywhere we go, people are stopping us, asking us about these hats. And we were like, hey, we would love to be able to talk about them on the show and even make them available for you guys. So if you would like to grab one of these hats, you can go to the link in the show notes and get yours today.
I'm curious, like I'm probably a little less familiar. Stu's a little more familiar.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask a question before we get too far into this. Like, how much of your framework was kind of what you said? So here's what I picked up on. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So I picked up on, I got still. That was kind of felt like the step, I got still. I started to see, and then I started to ask questions. And one of them was, is this even true? Like, is this true?
Yeah.
Is this a lie? Is this distorted in some way? How much of that, you were just sharing it as a story, how much of that is true of the actual framework that you guide people through?
It's a good question. It's in there. What I have people do now is we start with some silence. It's about a minute silence. I wasn't doing any of that at the beginning as a framework. It was just like, I just sit down. So we start with silence. And then I know like, even when I hear this, I'm like, oh, brother, we do 4 things from the day before that you're grateful for.
I love that. Yeah.
And I hear that, and you see your Instagram post or whatever, and you're like, I get it. You look past it the last 24 hours, every stinking day I do this. And I'm like, man, that was awesome yesterday when Emery fake punched me, or my daughter Emery. You just forget. We're moving so fast.
So fast.
So there's 4 things you're grateful for. And then I do what I call epidermis layer journaling. So I call it epidermis layer. It's a Dallas Willard thing. The epidermis layer thought is the surface layer stuff that stands between you, your deeper self, and God. Wow. So we journal for 10 minutes. So I just have people write for 10 minutes nonstop. Don't lift your pen. Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about grammar. Do not judge anything you write.
Let it flow.
Like, I don't care what it says.
Right.
You do that for 10 minutes. Then we have a prompt. Then we have some listening section. So to answer your question, that's sort of the daily, we do that every day. Now, as you clear through the noise, part of the framework that I built throughout those 15 years was okay, I quieted the noise. Well, now I kind of feel like God's sort of pulling me over here to start this podcast or adopt a kid or start a business or do whatever. Oh, that's probably not for me. That's scary. I probably can't do that. Who am I to do that? So I call that the war. So you quiet the noise, you sense a pull for whatever your thing is, whatever your idea is, or whatever God's putting inside of you. Well, then you hit the war, which is the fears, the voices in your head, the resistance. So that would kind of be what you're talking about, to be like, oh, the thoughts in my head, that's just fear. The thoughts in my head during the Mandy story and me writing the letter, those were distorted. Those were voices. So there's three parts that I put into the war. Fear is just one, that everybody deals with that. Who am I to do this? But the voices are, hey, you married the wrong girl. This isn't really what you're supposed to be doing, you know? So those are the voices that I was like, wait, I don't know if those are me.
Wow.
And it could be the enemy. It could be your brain trying to protect you. It could be any of these things.
Sure.
I don't really care.
Doesn't matter.
I don't care who it is. If you're spiritual, say it's the devil. If you're not spiritual, it's your brain trying to protect you from anything new. Yeah. So those are the voices that then come in, and I noticed them, thankfully, and I only can point to this 15 years later that I noticed it there. I didn't know this was what was going on. But that's the war. I call it the war. To answer your questions, I was going through that and then noticed it. And so something we do in Holy Work is, when you notice the voice that says, hey, I'm not being a good guest on this podcast, or my genes are too high, you know, whatever the thing is, just say thanks, not needed.
Ooh, I love that.
Just, thanks. Now, whether it's if it's the enemy, if it's Satan in the spiritual world, whatever, get out of here. If it's your own brain trying to protect you from trying something new and doing a podcast, thanks. I know you're just trying to protect me. Not needed. I'm good. I'm a grown up.
Yep.
And, well, you might have married the wrong girl. You made a mistake. I understand. You're trying to protect me. Thanks. Not needed.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay committed.
Wow.
Yeah. So does that kind of answers your question?
Yeah. And I just want to say I relate to that so much. Like, just as you've processed it, doing a lot of inner work in my life over the last 5 or 6 years too, and healing and IFS and all counseling and all the things. It's like it all kind of boiled down to like, I wasn't getting still. I wasn't paying attention to the war inside of me and the stuff. Yeah. And it felt like I always described it the first time I described it was with a guy who we love on this podcast, a guy named Jeff Schulte, which you may know. And I was sitting with Jeff and I said, I feel like my life is like a glass jar and there's just dirt and mud and bacteria. And somebody's just been doing this, shaking it my whole life. Yeah. And I'm just so familiar with it that I'm fine. But I don't think I'm fine, because the moment I stop, it's like it all slowly does this, and then I start seeing, and I'm like, oh God, you know. And he was like, oh dude, that's the inner work. Like that's what it means to be aware and you don't have to fix it all. You don't have to take the lid off. Yep. It's just the slowing down. And so I'm so encouraged to know that's work you're bringing into the world, because it's so needed. I think, how often as men are we invited into spaces where we can, even church can sometimes feel like more shaking. It's I got to know more, and I got to learn more, and I got to exegesis. And it's like, what does that even mean? I don't know, but I'm supposed to do it. Marriage feels like I got to do this. We got to have a date night, and we got to go do a thing, and the kids and the baseball tournaments and it's like, at what point do I just like be? Yeah. Like, where's the room for my being? And so I know you've done a lot of this work. I'd be interested in hearing more.
Yeah. Well, I know we were kind of talking a little bit about it before the show, but I think I found you, like, you had put out the podcast first, and we're saying, hey, we're going to start this course. And it was either the podcast or the course, but it might have been like just a sample thing you did on the show. And I sat down and was like, all right, I think I need this, but I'm also a little bit like, oh, well, I don't even know if this stuff works or whatever. So I sat down, and the first thing you had us do is just like sit there and have like a minute or two of just being quiet and being still. And and there's some music playing or whatever, and I start crying in the middle of this. Like, I'm like, nothing's even happened yet. I'm just sitting here, tears rolling down. But I realized,
so strange,
I was like,
isn't it?
oh, I'm not actually paying attention to what's going on in me.
Yeah.
I'm too busy putting out fires. I'm too busy worrying about what is going to happen or has happened. And that, to me, I was like, okay, there's something to this. Yeah. There's more to be done here. And then I went through for a few months going through the program, and I hate my handwriting. I hate like writing. I'm left-handed. It just feels like slop. Yeah. And I was like you said, just saying thanks, but noted, I don't need that. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. And I just sat there and wrote, and even the things like the 4 things, what are you thankful for? Yeah. I would think about that, and I'd see, oh, there's like a pattern. There's a few things. A lot of it was my family, my wife, and just even the things that we were struggling with that the Lord was like opening up my eyes to, oh, you really are blessed with so much good stuff. But what really helped too is then I brought it to my wife, and I'm like, you should try this. You should do this. She is way better at it than I am and still does it. And she's filled up journal after journal. Yeah. And it came in absolutely pivotal in this last year. We went through one of the hardest years of our lives, and for her especially. And it like to think if you hadn't stopped, if you hadn't gone, is that the Lord? Yeah. While you're on that run, and if you hadn't written down that first letter, the impact that it has had, even on me, on my wife, on everybody who's gone through it, it wouldn't be here, you know? So I appreciate that. I just want to say thank you for doing that.
That makes my day. I had to tell a version of this story for a thing a couple of months ago, and I was having somebody help me write it because the thing I was doing it for had to be exactly 35 minutes.
Oh, Lord.
And it was like a thing. And so I got somebody to help me work on the story. And we got to, what should I say at the end? So I take him through, I had like 5 minutes to tell the intro, 4-minute outro, and then in the middle was like 27 minutes of walking through the actual exercises, right? So we get to the end, and I'm like, how do I outro this for those 4 minutes? And I don't know if this fits right now, but I don't care. The person I was working with goes, man, can you imagine if you wouldn't have stopped and told Mandy that stuff back in 2010? You wouldn't have been able to sit with her while she was going through chemo.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about that here yet. That's why I was like, I don't know if it's appropriate yet. But my wife 3 years ago was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I just think, man, if I would have left when I was 29 and then to see this girl that I had married going through this later in her life, I'm just like, thank you, God, for smacking me in the face and helping me wake up. And I'm by no means do I have the answers. I just feel like I'm the host of, hey, I'll show up and we're going to do this thing, but I'm going through it too. And to just have you say that, hey, what if I wouldn't have done that? Like, I would have missed so much. I wouldn't have been able to sit next to her in those chemo chairs and all that stuff. And it's just like, oh my gosh. Even if we're driving each other crazy now, I'm just like, no, I'm freaking in, you know? Yeah. As much as we drive each other crazy and annoy each other or whatever. But thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So what was kind of the stuff of all of that was going on back then? What do you feel like it was truly revealing in you and where you were going, where you are now, I guess? How did that impact the present?
So many different ways that I could go here. I remember writing in that first journal. I have a page. It's like 10 pages in. So it's really early. And it's angry stuff. It's like the handwriting is even, it just doesn't look like my handwriting now. And I've done lots of research on expressive writing now, and I know a lot about it. And obviously it was way different then because there was a lot more going under the surface, which was, I don't like myself. I have these addictions I don't know what to do with. I'm gonna dig around in here until we figure it out, and I'm mad at my dad, or lots of things like that. But I have this page that's like 10 pages in. I don't exactly know, but it's in the first part of this first journal. And it says, man, there's something to this. 15 years from now. Mm-hmm. It said 10 to 15 years from now or something like that. Mm. And it wasn't even necessarily about the journaling. It was just like, there's something going on. 10 to 15 years from now, this is going to be worth it.
Yeah.
It was something like that. And I didn't even have any idea what that would be. So, but what it did is it quieted the noise. I was so angsty because I was like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing all the time. In my job, I just felt very discontent with everything that was going on. And so what it started to do was quiet that noise. Mm-hmm. Okay, where are you in life? You got some things to work on. Mm-hmm. You got to figure out your money. You got to figure out these addictions. You need to work on your relationship with your wife. Why would God give me any more responsibility if I'm bitching about the ones I have right now?
100%. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it goes back to the other thing that happened when I said, God, I dare you to rock my world, the work story I was going to tell you. So I was a designer at this little agency. And we worked on stuff that I could care less about. Sprinklers, sump pumps, salon chairs. So like I'm making brochures and I'm sitting there, this is stupid. Yeah, like I don't care about sprinklers, you know. But I was also in a band, like I said, and I would go and make my band posters or schedule the shows and whatnot. And so there was this one day that I had to make a band poster at lunch for an upcoming show. And I knew I had an hour. I was like, oh, I'm going to run downtown. I'm going to take a picture of these cool old buildings and I'm going to put it on the poster and blah, blah, blah. So 12 noon hits, I jump up, I head downtown, I take the pictures, I head back, get to my desk, make this poster. I think it's awesome. The guys are going to love this. This is going to be so good, right? 12:45, it's looking good. I'm having fun. I'm listening to music, blah, blah, blah. 12:59, 1 o'clock hits, back to the sprinkler brochure. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, I don't know if I heard this or just thought it or whatever, but I just sensed, hey, what if you put as much energy into the sprinkler brochure as you did your band poster? Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, oh, brother. All right, what would really help these sprinkler people sell their sprinklers better? Okay, well, I could go take a picture. What if I just brought the energy that I brought to the band poster of this thing? Mm-hmm. So I got the sprinkler, I cut it in half, we took a picture and blah, 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 made this brochure. It looked pretty cool. Turned it into the account executive. She took it to the client. The client really liked it. I had fun making it. And I was like, imagine that. So the next one was a sump pump brochure. I was like, I'm going to make the freaking coolest sump pump brochure I can do. All right, what would we do here? The next was a salon chair. So I stopped wanting to be somewhere else, doing something else, and just did this thing the best I could. Mm. Starting by embracing that is then what led to, hey, what if you figured out your money? Mm. Okay, let's work on this, Mandy. We start working on our money. I'm doing better work because I'm putting energy towards it. We're working on our money. I hear about Dave Ramsey. I listen to the podcast, all because I started to embrace where I was at and do the best I freaking could with it right there instead of bitching about the fact that I'm not where I'm supposed to be.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So then the way I think God was pulling this thread was like, all right, we're going to get you figured out at work. Then we're going to figure out your money. And then we're going to move you down to Tennessee and you're going to figure out your marriage. Mm. And you're going to work on that. That's going to be the key to the future.
Wow.
And I mean, there's an amazing quote that is from, who's the King and Country guys? What's her name?
Joel.
Smallbones. David Smallbone, their dad. Yeah. He has this phrase or something that says, your family is not in the way, they are the way.
That's it, dude.
And I always looked at him, they're holding me back. My band's not taking off because I'm married or, all these kind of things. And and this took a long time to do, once I just, embrace this. My most holy work is to be with Mandy and figure out how to do this. And then these other things will work themselves out. Mm-hmm. So I know I'm kind of rambling there, but that's to answer your question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good, dude. Yeah, there's a I think it's Dallas Willard quote that I love, and I haven't thought of it in a long time, but you mentioned, I think you mentioned a Dallas. Was it Dallas Willard?
Yeah.
Okay, mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it's
the
Dallas
epidermis layer thinking stuff.
Yeah, he said something one time that was really helpful for me. But he said, a disordered schedule is the result of a disordered heart.
Yeah.
And I remember that being kind of one of those things that moved me beyond the sort of superficial layer of maybe I'm just not planning good enough. And I think there's probably a lot of our dudes who listen to the podcast and they're probably sitting there like right now going like, no, I don't need to do that deep excavation kind of work, being aware. Yeah. I just need better systems. I need, I was talking to a buddy yesterday from LA. He's a comedian, really talented dude. He flew in to do some shows at Zany's and all this. And I'm like, we were talking about podcasts and what makes podcasts meaningful. And we got in this whole thing and he's like, dude, I believe this lie for so long that if I just had better systems, if I just better like habits, and he named different dudes who are kind of the thing of that. Yeah. And I asked if he'd ever heard of you. And he said, yeah, dude, I like literally have done his work. And I was like, what? That is crazy. And he was like, tell me everything. Like, tell me everything I need to know. Let's make this podcast amazing. And it's funny. His response was like, literally, he just said, he'll appreciate you being present, like just being fully there. And I think that spoke like as a hat nod to you beyond anything. Wasn't like, oh, if you say this, he'll love this. It was more like, I think his whole work is about showing up and being with yourself, which is ultimately being with God. And even if you don't believe in God, it's being, and you're made to be. And it was so cool, that's man. Great, like I was just like, dang it.
And you really want to throw caveats in there.
Sure.
I am Mandy. If she were sitting here, she's like,
I love this.
He's always thinking about something else.
Totally.
So
we're
it's like,
humans, man.
I'm not like Mr. Zen master over here.
Totally.
I just know that when I set aside a half an hour in the morning to get all this stuff out,
100%,
my day's better.
Yeah.
And then as you do that over and over again, you learn, man, I hate being in meetings.
Yeah.
I'm going to try something different.
Yeah. What lights me up?
Yeah.
Where's my passion flowing?
And all right. Yeah. You got to do work and you got to find ways to make income and all that stuff.
Sure.
And sometimes that involves meetings and being busy and systems.
Yeah.
But
there's a time and a place for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I journaled this morning. I wasn't going to share this. I'll share this real quick. But I journaled this morning and I'm kind of off and on with journaling. When it's probably like a pipe. When it gets backed up, I'm like, I need to freaking journal.
Get this out. Yeah.
I can't pay another therapist. My God.
Yeah, right.
The bills are racking up. It's gonna have so many write-offs in my day. Anyway, my inner world. But I woke up and I was like, I really need to and I almost was like intentional, like, don't talk to the kids, don't talk to wife yet. Just wait. I need 6 minutes, 10 minutes, anything I can get. And I started journaling, and today is my stepfather's birthday. And my stepfather and I have had a very dynamic, as many relatives in my life had some pretty crazy times. And he has Parkinson's, and it's pretty advanced now. And I started journaling, and I wrote something in it to the point of what we're talking about, about betrayal. And I thought it was more going to be, and you're watching it sort of happen. You're like, what is this? Where's this coming? Who's writing? Like, somebody hijacked my pen. Right. Like, that's what it felt like. Yeah. And I thought I was going to write about maybe I felt betrayed by him, or maybe Parkinson's, his body's betraying him. And I'm kind of like, I don't know where this is. And I started going, I've always felt like I'm betraying my father, my biological father, by loving this person. My dad and my stepdad and my mom went to high school together. Yeah. They all knew each other. And I felt like because my dad has felt betrayed by this man, I'm betraying my father by saying thank you or happy birthday or you were a great dad to me. Yeah. Right. And I just sat in this like, whoa, I didn't have words for that for what is almost 40 years. Yeah. And now all of a sudden in one given morning, as I just sit and there's kids in the background watching some stupid Thunderman show and it's super loud and I'm super annoyed. My wife's asking me, do you want eggs? And I'm super kind, but also I'm trying to be with my heart. Mm-hmm. This word kind of comes out, and it's so like the power of being present. We kind of make that mystical sometimes, and maybe it is, but it's also like practical, like just show up and be there with yourself for a minute and you might learn something. Yeah. So I'm thankful for your work and just in my own life, I'm a testament of like, it really does work. And some days you write about stupid nonsense and you're like, the dog's nails on the floor drive me crazy. Yep. But you go, oh, I have a lot of angst. Yep. I have a lot that's like dumb stuff, but it's
what's underneath
that?
Crazy? Yeah.
What's underneath that? So it's meaningful work.
That's great, man.
I think there's this like tendency I think it's everybody, but men maybe especially, is we don't know what we're feeling. We won't identify it, call it out, and we don't do anything to process it. And so when something comes up, we're usually just seeking something to distract us, to entertain us, to please us, whatever, something like that. And I had this moment mowing the lawn the other day. I'm listening to this audiobook and it's good, but something about there's like spiritual stuff this person was talking about. And I just felt like God, like in not even through the book so much, but just speaking to me. So I'm like, I'm going to sit down. Yeah. I don't know why I'm going to read like Psalm 33 or 4. So I read like 3 Psalms and it hit me in a different way, but I would still go back to, because I had done the work before of just beginning to go, okay, let's actually ask, what am I really feeling? Yeah. What am I really thinking? Yeah. And it just opened everything up. Yeah. So I didn't even journal in that moment, but
it is a practice that you learn. Wow. When I first started to have a team, people would be like, well, you need to have a one-on-one each week, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Why?
Yeah, right.
It's got stuff to do. You
have to.
But what somebody told me is my friend Robbie, he said, one-on-ones, if they are consistent, are 80%. What are we doing? How you doing? You good? Mm-hmm. Everybody good? How you doing? Okay. That's sort of felt like a waste of time. Mm. And then there's that 1 out of 6 where they come in and they say, hey, I can't figure this out. I'm struggling with this. You're like, man, I sure am glad we had this scheduled. Mm-hmm. So it's like with the journaling, you're like, I'm going to show up. And like you said, some days it's about the cats scratching the ground.
Yeah.
And then the next day you're like, whoa, I didn't realize I had to get that out.
Yeah.
And neurologically, our brains think in blips and feelings and pictures and a lyric and I'm hungry. Like it's like just a bunch of feelings. When you write it down, you start to just put it into a sentence. It actually does start to help your brain make sense of all the things going on in your life. Yeah. It starts to help you make meaning out of it. When it's just sort of knocking around from the left to the back to the front to the everywhere, it's just, you're just holding everything. And so just the mere fact of writing it down neurologically, scientifically, just helps you release it.
Wow.
I didn't know any of that when I first started, but
it worked.
It literally changes your brain.
It's crazy.
And I'll challenge the guys who are listening. 80% of the people in the program are women.
Dang.
So, and they're usually working through something a guy has done.
Of course. 100%.
And the guys are like, I ain't not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would just challenge the guys listening to push yourself to make some space.
Yeah.
Because your family needs it.
Yep.
I do this every day and I still suck a lot of the days, at being present with my kids or my wife or really being with her. And I'm like, if someone is sleepwalking through their life, the people around them are feeling it, whether they're telling you or not. So,
wow. That's really well said. I feel like it makes me mad. It really does. It makes me mad, like thinking about how, for 2 reasons. One, in therapy world, they say if you spot it, you got it. I feel like I hear that and I go, I know why I didn't show up and share my heart and talk about my feelings. It's, all the cultural things. And then you throw church stuff on that and you throw your relationship with your parents and your biological blah, 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 and all the things like, but it still makes me mad because I've seen the freedom. I've seen them. That makes me mad, and that's what it sounds like in my heart. Yeah, we should leave that
just
in.
Just a big motor.
Just a gigantic Harley Davidson is what it feels like inside. It makes me mad thinking about like how much it costs me relationally, like how much connection I missed out on with myself, with God, with other people, with my wife. My God, like 16 years in. It's probably the last 5 years I've learned how to like actually articulate some of my inner world, and it's clunky still. Yeah. But just being messy and going like, man, that actually hurt my heart when you did that versus like, it pisses me off when you know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, that's going nowhere good. Yeah. We will fight and I'll be on the couch.
We go to
it's
anger
like,
real quick.
It's like learning language. And I think, our relational experience is always going to be limited by our words, like our ability to articulate with words. And so having feelings language for men is always like, I'm soft. And it's like, dude, I think one of the toughest things a dude can do, one of the strongest things, I think Blase Pascal or whatever his name is. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. I know you're around here somewhere.
Say it either.
It's like 17 something, whatever it was. But like he said, you know, one of the hardest things for someone to do is sit in a room quietly alone, right? Like it's like, and it's true. Like you get alone with yourself and it's like, it can be scary. It can be frightening. I would just be curious as the dudes who are listening are like, okay, maybe this Lucas guy's onto something. Maybe I try this thing. Maybe I step into a program with him. What should I prepare for? Like, what is this going to look like? How will I be better? Is it worth it? If he's thinking through like a typical dude, you know, facts versus benefits, or like, okay, you know, is it worth it from an ROI standpoint on my emotional health or relational health? What would you say to that, dude?
That's a good question. I want to, before I go there,
go for it.
What we do after that 10 minutes I talked about earlier, we get it all out. The step right after that is I put up the 8 core feelings.
Love it.
So based off of Chip Dodd's work, The Voice of the Heart, these 8 core feelings either lead to a gift or lead to an impairment.
Totally.
And so anger, fear, sad, glad, hurt, lonely, guilt, shame, that might be all of them.
Yep.
There's so much stuff out there about all the different emotions you feel. I just love how Chip's like, these 8.
It's the core 8. Yeah.
And simple. I try to make it as simple as possible. And after you vomit out for 10 minutes, I just say, hey, some feelings may or may not have come up. So we're just going to spend 2 minutes. And I also put up a giant list of descriptors to help them whittle it down to the 8.
That's great.
Which ones came up? Who or what are they about? And you just do that for a minute, 1 60-second period. Then after that 60 seconds, I put up the gifts and the impairments and say, all right, if you admitted these feelings to a safe person, to yourself and to God, what's the gift it could lead you to? So if you're feeling anger is really just deep want and passion.
Yeah.
What if you admitted it? What would it help? If you're feeling really afraid, well, fear is actually pretty healthy. If I am not afraid of failing the test or afraid of paying my taxes, I'm going to have some problems. Okay, so that leads to wisdom. If I don't acknowledge the fear and I just let it overtake and my thoughts go crazy, it leads to the impairment of anxiety.
Yeah.
So I put up a minute. Hey, is that feeling leading you to the gift, or are you being pulled back to the impairment?
So good.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
So if you just get into the practice of that each day, then I can be driving along and my wife says something and I'm like, Like it happened this morning, actually. I wrote first anger in this little 2-minute section. Anger. And then I thought about it. And I was like, I'm actually kind of resenting her for something. Oh, dang. What's the feeling associated with resentment? Oh, it's hurt.
Yeah.
Dang, I think I am feeling hurt. That's what it is. And it was like just knowing the language, like you were talking about, allowed me to just sort of navigate that versus just slamming the drawer.
Yes, exactly. Which is what I've done in the past.
Yeah. Or being mad at the dogs. I don't even like dogs. Why do we even have dogs?
Right.
I hate dogs. I didn't want the dogs in the first place. I never wanted it. And your brain just keeps going down.
It does.
You know, it's just like, this is it. So I just got distracted by the feelings. And your question was,
so good.
What was back to your question? Do you remember?
That was perfect. You don't know. That's a lot of the work. Yeah. I do a lot of coaching now with men, and we used Chip Dodd stuff and Jeff Schulte and Phil Herndon and all those guys. Yeah. And so the 8 feelings has been a big guide. Today, we did that on a call with a group of men. It was beautiful. But that's 100% what I think we're going for is like, I think we just need to beat this drum in culture right now that being a man is not freaking chewing tobacco and what if you do your thing, but like it's not these sort of like things that we've made it like I'm strong and I'm tough, and it's like the greatest athletes in the world become better when they rest. Like LeBron James isn't LeBron James going this far into the league in the NBA and you know, if he's not resting, sleeping, eating healthy, being aware of his mental state, emotional state. And so it's like making manhood, something that's like we're in touch with our inner world. Because if we're not, it's probably, I always say it's like Pinocchio. It's like there's somebody pulling the strings up here and you're like, no, it's totally me. And it's like, it's not, dude. You have a lot of rage from childhood or whatever.
And I will say, the reason you slow down, the reason you would journal, the reason you would write things out is when you're writing about life that's happened, the way you're feeling about life. We don't just want to live there.
Totally.
Though.
Camp out.
So in order to write about life, you have to live life.
Yes.
So what I make sure to do after we do the 10 minutes, after we do the feelings, is we have a listening section where it's just, okay, God, in light of everything I wrote, what do you want to say to me? And then just 2 minutes and you just write down, if you sense something, write it. If not, cool. But then the last part is, all right, based off of everything I wrote, what's my one action step for today or something I need to let go of?
That's good.
Because it isn't just about staying and staring at our shoes all day. No, we're here to make stuff, to create. But what happens is we're so caught up in our heads that I was in 2010, that I could destroy the things I'm really wanting to create.
Yeah.
But I do this so that I can be clear enough to create the best things, the right things. And so if you're just out there reacting and, sleepwalking, you're not going to create the best things for your life.
Yeah.
But I'm all about making stuff, doing stuff, creating things, knocking into things. And I don't just want to stare at my shoes and journal all day.
That's right.
I do this so I can make the best stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
So that I make the best family, make the best work.
I love that.
Impact people.
So well said.
So when guys think, well, we're just going to, meditate all day. And I'm like, no, like half hour a day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then let's go make some stuff. Let's do stuff. Yeah. And
that's so good.
So, yeah.
There was a quote, I think it may not be him, but the Getting Things Done system.
Yeah.
There's a quote from him. I think it was something like, your mind is a great place for having ideas, just not holding them.
Yeah, that's good.
And what you were describing earlier is like all of the things that just pop up and you think, oh, well, I'll hold that over here and I'll keep this over here. Yeah. It ends up overwhelming you and often leading to the impairment of certain feelings and things. Yeah. I don't know why that stuck out to me, but just thinking how as men, I think part of not allowing ourselves to process things, ever talk about it, leads us down this path of like, I'm frustrated. And then like you were describing, I can tend to blame the wrong things or think it must be someone else. It must be my spouse. It must be my job. It must be my kids or something. I have two thoughts. Yeah. A friend of mine who I went to Bible college with, this is a few years ago, he told me, he's like, I just feel so like, do you ever just get disappointed that you this is it? Like I used to be, I was looking forward to like getting married, and then I was looking forward to having a family, and then I was looking forward to being successful. And each time he got there, but he was telling me, he's like, and it kind of scared me a little bit, like both for myself, but for him, because what he was describing, I now realize is you don't really know what you want because you don't actually think about it. You're just chasing things, hoping that this something is going to satisfy you, and never slowing down to actually go.
You just said one of the most important things. You don't know what you want.
Yeah.
And I don't know who listens. Is it Christians who listen to this mostly, or
both?
Whoever?
Yeah, split.
Christians really struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because it's, well, I want to do what God wants.
That's right.
And I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
What is
that voice? Where's my voice?
Yeah, me too. But he gave you some specific ideas that he didn't give you, this other guy or this other lady. What do you want? Well, I don't know. It's kind of selfish or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, what is it?
What is it? Say it.
And so when you go through these processes and you get those thoughts out of your head onto the page, you slowly start to figure out your own deeper self and God. And that leads you to, I actually really want to do the podcast, or I want to start a business, or I'd like to be a doctor or whatever. Talking to a guy today, incredible guy. went to school, became a surgeon, residency, 10 years, then went and served in Papua New Guinea doing surgeries for underdeveloped countries and stuff like this.
Wow.
But he's come back from that, and he's like, I've just been going for so long, I don't know what I want next.
Yeah.
And I've thought about this quite a bit. Our culture or whatever starts off, you go to kindergarten, then you go to first grade, second grade. All right, so kindergarten, I finally made it to first grade. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, now I got to get to seventh grade. All right, and I work through this. All right, now I got seventh. All right, I got to make it to a freshman. Cool, did it. All right, well, I should probably go to college. Well, I graduated high school. All right, started college.
Yeah.
You go through all that, and you get 18, 19, 20 years of life where your next step was right over there.
Yes.
Well, then you get out of college, and you're like,
what now?
Because there's not a specific next step. And so one of the most important things for people to do is, one, get a job and start doing something.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But then what do I actually want my life to look like?
Yeah.
Because if we don't define that, you will be sleepwalking. And that's kind of what I was doing those first 9 years is I was floating in the next thing that came in front of me. And I wasn't being like, no, this is actually what I want. And thankfully, that all has, I don't regret any of those things that happened because it made what I'm doing now, which I love. But if we can stop earlier and just be like, no, I do.
It's great.
I would like a family. I would like this sort of life. I would like sort of this thing. You just have to start to define it yourself versus let the system give you the next milestone.
I love that.
Which isn't easy. It's not an easy task.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna ask. I know we got to close down here in a minute, but I was just gonna ask, what do you want moving forward from here? Like, what's the thing you're noticing inside of you?
I left Ramsey to write a book that was about the extent of the thought I had at that point. I knew it was going to be about this. It was going to be about God and creativity and journaling, and I didn't really know what it was. So then I started to be like, well, I'm going to have to build a business. I want to build a business. And I really love doing that. It's one of my, I've really loved and hated a lot of it.
Totally.
But so what do I want? I want a $10 to $15 million business within the next 10 years that becomes the place that people go when they need to slow down and clear this out, to get quiet enough to see where they want to go in life. And then once they do that, then they start to come out of the clouds. So they lift their heads and they're like, wow, I'm not so overwhelmed, which then leads them to, man, there's something I want to build, or I need to build the company I'm at a little bit better, or something.
Yeah.
So
wow,
I've started something called Holy Work Builders, and it's for the people, you get through the noise. So my main thing is Holy Work, getting people to slow down, to quiet that. But then they come out and they're like, hey, can you help me figure out how to do this thing? So then I'm starting a group that's like, no, we're going to build some stuff and build a brand and build a business and blah, blah, blah. And then if you just keep going and all of a sudden you've got a team of 10, 20, 30 people, well, then you got to figure out how to lead it.
Yeah.
So then there's Holy Work, quiet the noise. Holy Work, let's build some stuff. And then Holy Work, let's lead the best we can.
Wow.
So I want those to flow together. And I think it's all Holy Work. Like, if you're building something amazing in the world, you're doing Holy Work. If you're leading your team the best way you can, that's Holy Work. And part of that came from the inspiration of Exodus 31. It's Bezalel. Have you heard this guy's name before? Okay, it's the first person the Bible mentions specifically as being filled with the Spirit.
Whoa.
It's when they're making the Ark of the Covenant. Moses comes down from the mountain or whatever, and he says, see, I have filled Bezalel and Oholiab with the Spirit to make all this stuff. And you're like, whoa, how come we don't talk about this?
He's building stuff.
He's building stuff. He's making stuff.
Whoa.
And the first person the Bible mentions specifically, of course, Joseph was filled with the Spirit. Of course, other people were before. People argue with me all the time. Well, the Ruach of Adam was the Spirit. Okay. But the first time it says it specifically is this Exodus thing where God wants to make something with a human.
Yeah. Which is wild.
So we have to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
If we can quiet the noise enough to actually hear what he wants to make with you, you acknowledge that it's desires he put inside of you since before you were born that are different than the desires of the other people around you. You can go with confidence and move in that direction.
Yeah.
And then as you do it, it'll probably grow.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard. And you'll have to learn new systems to make it grow. You're going to have to lead some stuff. So what do I want? I want that thing to freaking
Blow
be
up.
amazing.
Yeah.
And help a lot of people lead their stuff better.
Yeah.
So
I love that you say that, because I think in Christian circles, sometimes it's either two things.
Yeah.
It's wrong to grow a successful business for some reason, or two, it becomes the shots fired here, but TBN, we're growing this massive money grab ministry type of thing. And it's not, it's neither one of those things. It's actually no, I'm taking what God gave me and I'm using the gifts he gave me to their fullest potential, I guess.
One of the things I loved about what Dave would say is he's like, money is the applause the marketplace gives you.
Yeah.
So if I'm providing a service that actually helps these folks and they're willing to pay that, that I'm asking, and it actually helps them do their thing, I have zero problem making a bunch of money.
Yeah, totally. It's not like you're strong arm and I'm just getting here and you're
nobody's trying to manipulate anybody. I loved when he said, nobody gave me any crap when I was selling 200 books out of my trunk, but when I sell 1 million, they're complaining about me. And it's that 1 million books helped bazillions of people. I have this author I'm working with, and she writes fiction books, and she's like, well, do I need to put myself out there? It feels very selfish of me to put myself out there. And I'm like, tell me what the subject of the book you're writing next is. Well, it's called Recovering 17. And it's about this traumatic thing that happened, and then this and this and this. And I'm like, so if you play small and 100 people find it because you didn't want to put yourself out there because it felt selfish, is that better than 100,000 people finding it and letting this help them? And she's like, oh yeah. So Christians especially feel like this drive is somehow selfish or self-serving or something like that. And that's just not true.
You can certainly mess it up, I guess, but it's just reorient, get on track.
We can make stuff and build stuff and help a bunch of people. So and that's what I want to have happen.
Awesome. Yeah. One of the things I loved in the whole process of Holy Work is the part where you just have a sit and listen for the Lord to speak. Yeah. And it seems some people get weird about that, and others I honestly was like, well, maybe it'll work, but I doubt I'm going to hear anything. I can't say, oh, I heard a thus saith the Lord, but it was odd of me that it just seemed strange. I had never really thought, what would happen if I just sit there and listen and then just write down what comes to mind? And you would say every time, don't interrogate it, don't worry about it, just write it. It's not, you're not writing scripture. This is not some second revelation type of thing. It's just something. It's maybe the Lord's impressing on your heart, and just doing that alone gave me more clarity on things than, and I think that leads me to a question. What would you say to the men right now? Because you said mostly it's more women doing this than men. What kind of charge or challenge would you give them? And what, I know you can't say, I guarantee, in 6 months you'll have this, but where could they be in their life if they just began to go, I'm going to stop, I'm going to slow down, I'm going to listen to the voice of God, and I'm just going to start moving forward and trusting?
Two things, the listening part first, and then what's the challenge for them? The listening part, the first couple times I did that with people was, one guy goes, I've been a Christian for 20 years and I've never slowed down enough and asked God what he wants to say to me.
Dang.
Mic drop.
What are we doing? If we believe that there is a God and he is communicating with us, and if we believe the scriptures that says he wants relationship with us, what have we just been doing all the talking the whole time?
Yes is the answer.
Yes. So the 10 minutes of journaling allows us to get that out and say, here's what's going on. I'm an imperfect human. Please do with this what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm feeling. Then, okay, God, in light of everything I wrote, what do you want to say to me? A lot of times, well, for me, this last couple of years with Mandy's cancer and all these things, most of the time, it's just, hey, Luke, just keep going. I'm with you. Keep going. I did that for a group of grizzled sort of construction-y guys one time, and I was like, they are going to hate this. We got to that part, and I got to the silence and just listening, and this guy just starts sobbing. And I didn't do anything with it, just let it happen. We get through the whole session, we get to the end, and I was like, hey, tell me a little bit about what was going on there. And he goes, I just kept hearing, you have value. You have value.
Whoa.
You have value. You have value. And he's like, I just didn't think I did. And we judge these thoughts that, well, that can't be God. That's just me making that up. And I'm like, what if you just imagined that God wasn't angry at you and was in a good mood?
Yeah.
Like,
that's not so bad.
Yeah. Like,
take it.
Hey, like, and then you accepted it and you wrote it down today.
Yeah.
And then write it down again tomorrow. And if you look back over the course of 2 months and you look at every day you stopped and said, what do you want to say to me? And put all those messages together, wonder what it would be. It'd be incredible. So the challenge I would put to guys, let's pretend that whoever's listening, we could sit down a year from now and we were having lunch and you were telling me this was the best year of your life. What would you be telling me? I want a better relationship with my kids. I want to make more money. I want to do all of these things, right? Okay, cool. What's standing in the way of that happening? Write those things down. If you can start to set a vision for a year from now, okay, what do we need to do to slow down enough to actually make those things a reality?
Yeah.
So that's the challenge. If you don't have a vision for the future, you're never going to get there.
Totally.
Then if you don't do the daily actions to get you there, you'll never get there.
Yeah.
So what this process does is it just slows you down to figure out what it is you actually want, which is, I figured out, I don't want to leave my wife.
Yeah.
I want a family. I want to be sitting there at 80 years old and say, man, we had a good ride, didn't we? Yeah. That's so it. Good. And so the challenge is start to actually say those things for the future. Just look out a year. What do I want for a year from now? Man, okay, what things do I need to do to make that happen? Well, if I want a better relationship, to be more present with my wife, with my kids, I got to start opening up the little trap door inside of here to see what's going on in my heart. So that's the challenge for today.
Yeah. Lucas LeFevre, holy work. How can guys find out? And also, I know you do like challenges, like 7-day or 14 days, something like that. Yeah. Is there anything like that coming up? Can guys jump in if they're like, okay, look, I'll give it a shot. This show, I made it this far. I might as well.
I do resets every quarter.
Okay.
So we just did one in April. I'll do one in July. But if people come follow me on Instagram, Lucas P. LeFevre, it's hard to spell, but look in the notes or whatever, and just type stand up. Okay. DM me stand up. I'll send them this 7-day challenge thing that gives them everything they need to do to implement themselves. Like tonight, they can do it today.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So that's the best way.
Yeah. I love it, buddy.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Thank you for your time.
Thank you guys again for watching. If you want to get more episodes like this, remember, like, share, subscribe, all of that. But do what Lucas was just saying. Go into the show notes, use the link. We'll have it there, and you can find him, DM him, stand up, and you can get access to that. And just give it a shot. You know, what do you got to lose? So we'll see you next time. And if you want to catch another episode, you can check out the one that's being referred right here.